When it comes to marketing her business, Olivia Carr is all about out-of-the-box thinking. How out of the box? Like she flew to LA from Australia, hired a car, and drove to the Kardashians' house and left them some product. That's how out of the box. It's an All Systems Go episode 656 of the 14-year-old award-winning small business big marketing podcast.
Well, I said, welcome to a small business marketing show where successful small business owners share their souls to take your marketing straight to the lead. Now, here's your host, Mr. Timbo Reid.
And welcome back to your weekly dose of super fun marketing. I'm your host, Timbo Reid, and I have an insatiable curiosity for uncovering marketing ideas that help businesses just like yours to grow. And boy, oh boy, have I achieved that today, my friend. I do that through a weekly in-depth conversation with a successful business founder that's walked the path before us. You infinitely more importantly, well, you're a motivated business owner, ready to crank out some great marketing to build that beautiful, beautiful business of yours into the empire it absolutely deserves to be. As per usual, team, there is marketing GOLD dripping from the ceiling over here at Small Business Big Marketing's HQ. So let's get stuck right in. Righto, now it's at this point that I normally rabbit on about asking you to support the work I do for small business by joining my membership over at patreon.com/marketing podcast. But I have something so much more important to share with you, especially if you're looking for new and effective ways to put your business on the map, or simply if you want to add some fun to your marketing. Who doesn't want a bit of that? Olivia Carr, well, she's the founder of Shhh Silk, SHHH Silk. It's an online, offline business that sells silky things that help you sleep. You know, eye masks, pillowcases, that kind of stuff. It's turning over around $2 million a year. It's got 7 staff. But that's not important right now. What is important is the way Olivia goes about building the business through fun, guerrilla-type marketing ideas, and boy, does she have plenty. From driving right up to the front door of the Kardashians' house unannounced, to flying a plane towing a promotional banner over the Melbourne Cup, Olivia is a huge believer in out-of-the-box thinking, and I love that. Her mantra is to do what other business owners aren't willing or haven't even thought about doing, because that's where the clear air is. Now, a couple of things to note. Olivia has written a book called Self-Made, which you'll hear referenced a few times in this chat. Plus, she's endured a troubled upbringing, postnatal depression. She's a fellow sufferer of anxiety, and she has done it pretty tough. She's almost lost the business 3 times as well. All of which we touch on in the early stages of this very personal chat before we get into the really clever, fun marketing stuff. So if you are doing it tough, and I know some of you are, or you're triggered by any of this discussion, then do me a favour, do yourself a favour. Go and talk to a friend, a mentor, or call your local support service, which in Australia is Lifeline, 13 11 14. Okay, let's go and meet Shhh Silk's Olivia Carr. Olivia Carr of Shhh Silk, welcome to the Small Business Big Marketing Podcast.
You have officially held the H's longer than anyone in history, so I like it.
I have a question about the H's, but I'll keep the powder dry on that for just a tick. Olivia, you're a huge supporter of helping women in business. What's your biggest frustration in that space?
Truthfully, my biggest frustration in that space would be that often the ones that need it the most don't have access to, whether it be the financial, the money to actually get help. They don't know where to go, possibly even being too scared to ask for the help. I think if I think specifically in the space that I'm in retail, there's this whole notion of, or certainly I've been in the game for 8 years, there's this notion of we all talk so much about the highs of retail and, this brand's killing it and this brand sold.
You all talk so much, full stop.
We do. This brand sold out in 7 minutes online, and it just creates this, environment that everyone's doing so well that when the smaller women that I help in the retail space, they feel inadequate, I guess, and therefore it makes them really vulnerable and scared to actually speak up when in actual fact, most of us are struggling. So that would be my biggest frustration, is being an advocate for saying, can we just actually cut through the BS and all share what's really happening behind the world of e-com.
Yeah. Well, hallelujah to that, Olivia. I don't think that's specific to women either, because, us men, you just need to look at, you spend any time on social. It's one of my biggest problems with social media. Everyone's life is infinitely better than mine. And I live in a really nice place. It's like, but what am I doing wrong? And and people, and I mean, I'm being facetious, but people do have that attitude and they buy into it and they convince themselves that they're the ones that are fucking up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just nonsense, because most of us are fucking up. We have good days, but we're not perfect.
Yeah. And I think, look, that's one of the things that I think the beauty of COVID, we're going to talk about this, I'm sure, today, but I nearly lost the business in March 2020. And that was a big turning point for my life, because it was at that moment that I actually just decided to share it all. I went out on LinkedIn, I went on Instagram, I showed everyone my bank account at that point, and it was the first time in the brand's history that we'd been in debit. And I was facing closure of the business. And I was like, from that point on, just something inside me switched. And I was like, you know what? No more pretending. Just tell everyone how tough it is. Let's not keep it all doom and gloom. But even to this day, I'll get in my car and I do what I call car chats. And if I'm having a bad day, I'll talk about it. I'll share what it feels like to go through that, to be in the mud. And I don't know, there is a bit of a movement. I do see other people doing it now, but it feels more empowering, to be honest.
So that moment, it was July 2020, rock bottom. You do an email or a social post to your followers, whoever wants to listen. Here's my bank account. I am in the shitter. I'm very interested to know the result of that, because, for two reasons. A, it's interesting, and B, past guest and the fellow who wrote the music bed for this podcast, a fellow called Lockie Doley. Lockie, and he spoke about this on the first interview I did with him, but he he's a rock star. He's the world's leading expert of the Hammond organ. He's got a band that can fill a room of 5,000 in Europe. He's sort of big time over there. He's Jimmy Barnes's keyboard player. So everything I just said kind of adds up to him being A-OK. Well, he wasn't. And he wrote a letter to his fans a few years ago saying, hey, listen, you think I'm a rock star. Yeah, I play on stage with Barnesy and people like that, but I can't pay my mortgage.
Yeah.
And everyone came to his rescue, and subsequently his whole life turned around. What happened to you?
Yes, I think it's a great story, and I think what's nice is it actually kind of sums up what self-made means to me as well, which we're also going to talk about. But if I start at the very beginning, I remember the night. Anyone that lives in Melbourne will remember this night as well. It was the night of the first lockdown, March 2020, and I literally was facing foreclosure of my business. We'd had 3 donut days, not donut of no cases, donut days of no sales. And it was the first time since the day the brand launched that we'd had donut days. And 3 days in a row of having no sales coming in the door. And I was facing something that I'd never gone through before. And I was like, wow, we're literally running out of money. On the third day, my bank account was, minus $900, $900 and something dollars. And I was like, oh my goodness, I had no reserve. There's so much about that moment that I learned I was doing things dramatically wrong. But I called up a tattoo parlor, and I remember saying, I need to come in, and they were closing at 6 p.m. like all the businesses had to. And I rock up, and it was 5 minutes before they closed. And I said, I just need you to inscribe self-made on my wrist.
Show me. That's awesome.
Yeah. So that was March 2020. And in that moment, what that meant for me is I genuinely thought I was losing it all. And I made a pact with myself and a commitment that irrespective of if it all fell apart, if all the staff went, if I had to lose it all, I would rebuild. And to me, that is 100%, like every day when I look at that is what self-made is. It's no matter the highs and the lows, but more importantly, when you are facing losing it all, having this, inner belief that no matter what, you'll rebuild.
A bit of a business question before we go back down the emotional rabbit hole, which is much more interesting, because I'm interested to know how you pulled yourself out of that little bit of sticky mud. 3 days of zero sales for a brand and a business that specialises in sleep and looking after oneself. It's the middle of COVID. What weren't you doing? I would have thought the business, with all respect, Olivia, should have 10 times.
So this is at the very beginning. So the nice thing of the story is where we ended up is we actually ended up having our biggest years ever.
Awesome.
But in that moment where, so much uncertainty in the world, everybody did stop. This is all before the handouts and the government, everybody stopped spending. There was a spending freeze. One of the beautiful sliding door moments, I guess, in business is I had just before that invested in so much stock. So I was one of those brands that was like, a lot of brands will do this. You make money, you invest in stock, you make money, you invest in stock, and the race continues in that way. Mm-hmm. So I had a warehouse at that point. We were holding close to $1 million in cost of product.
Wow.
But then we were having zero sales. So I was like, oh my goodness, this is a disaster. It actually ended up being what saved our business because the sales, as you know, during that time went through the roof, and we were one of the retailers that was holding stock. So that was amazing. But at that moment, not knowing what was coming, I had a warehouse full of stock. I had no cash reserve in the bank. And I didn't even know what a run rate was, which for those listening that don't know what a run rate was, I do talk about this in the book. It's essentially, in a nutshell, you should always have enough money in the bank that if you do experience some random thing like a pandemic, you can get through for about 6 months with zero sales. So that was a huge lesson. And I laugh about it now, but in the moment, it was definitely not funny. So yeah, I had to put a call out to everyone. I put a call out to all our retail partners, the likes of Adore Beauty. I had to literally do, I guess, the hustle, eat humble pie. I had to get on the phone and say, hey, I can't pay my staff. Is there any chance I have stock? Could you place an order? And I went out to our customers and I said, look, I know that these are really challenging times. Whatever you can afford to pay, could you please just order? And we came up with this campaign called Save Our Staff. And I was just trying to get through 6 weeks. I was like, if I can get through 6 weeks, I will work something out. I just need 6 weeks. Fast forward, we ended up killing it. We ended up being the number one face mask covering in the country.
Love it.
It was amazing, but it was not amazing at the beginning.
Yeah, bittersweet too.
Yeah. So
what a great story.
But that's what self-made really means to me. It's not really about a financial measure of success, which is what the dictionary calls it. The other side that the dictionary says is, becoming successful through one's own efforts. And it was the effort that I had to put in at that time to do whatever it takes. And, it's sad. A lot of people did lose their businesses during that time. And thankfully my mind has this ability to just never give up when my back's against the wall, which is essentially my entire life story. So
is it?
Many times, I think I do my best work when my back's up against the wall. So, yeah.
I do want to go back and understand where Shhh Silk came from. Sorry, I got it stuck in my mouth. But let's go back even further, because the business started, only 8 years ago? Not even, 8 years ago, nearly. What were you doing before that? And what kind of trials and tribulations were you managing through before you decided to become an e-commerce superstar?
Yeah, so the job I had just before this was I worked as a general manager for Pacific Brands, who are now Hanes International. So, Bonds, Sheridan, Champion, those guys. And this is back even, when I was there 10 years ago, e-commerce really wasn't, big brands weren't really investing in it. So it was like, oh, we've got this thing that you can sort of play with if you want called e-commerce. And they weren't really investing much money. There wasn't a lot of, but dabble in it if you want. And that's what I did. I dabbled in it and I saw potential, and I was thinking, oh my goodness, if just one person can create, 7 figures quite easily for a brand with very limited marketing budget, I think there's something in this world of e-commerce.
You got to play in the Pacific Brands sandbox at their
I
expense
did.
on their time. That's nice.
I did. And I will never forget the night where they let me play too much, because I went on the back of the Bonds website and I was like, I'll just kind of tidy it up a little bit. Now, I obviously understand code and things now, but back then I didn't. I was like, I'll just delete this file. We don't need that image.
Yeah.
Next minute, the entire website was wiped. So I was like, I remember that call to the head of IT, and I was like, oh my God, I'm definitely fired. I've just deleted all these files. Have a look at the website. Thankfully, our whole team got it up and running about 3 a.m. in the morning. But yeah, there you go. Note to self, don't delete anything on your website.
No. Don't do what you don't know about. Leave it to the experts is probably a good bit of advice there. You okay? So you saw the potential of e-commerce back when you were working for the man. Personally, you were also dealing with a whole lot of stuff, yeah. And I think this is important to understand where the Silk business came from,
Yeah.
right? So postnatal depression,
Yeah.
a fellow sufferer of anxiety, which we'll talk about, all that kind of stuff happening for you.
Yeah. So I think I'm in my life journey. It is fascinating. Like, it's interesting because I sit here and I'm like, yeah, that's my life. But I think for others, it's a fascinating story. I grew up in a home, there was domestic violence, substance abuse. As part of that journey, I started experimenting really early on in life with, getting mixed with the wrong crowd. I was drinking by the age of 12. I was, dabbling in things that I shouldn't have been dabbling in from the age of 13. I was very lost. I actually left school at 16. I had no mentors. I had no kind of, I guess, parental guidance, so to speak, in terms of what love and safety and all the things look like. And so I got lost. I got lost for a long way, and I moved to Queensland when I was 18 and studied acting, and I was on my way to NIDA, the National Institute of Dramatic Arts. I'd studied professionally since the age of 9. It was the only thing I was really passionate about, irrespective of, what I was up to in my personal life.
That was a way of taking you out of your reality?
Yeah, I think so. And you know what? I actually still struggle with it today. Even coming into this interview with you, it's really tempting to put on a mask or put on a persona and, and act my way through it. And it's like, I still, I have therapy. I still talk about remove the armor. You are safe. You are safe to be yourself. But I'd be lying if I said if it doesn't still come back to me today. And then Can
I just please hold your thought, because this is a really interesting story, but you're raising so many things as we go. I can't help but interrupt.
Yep.
And my listeners are going, Timbo, just shut up. Let it talk. But that whole idea of vulnerability, you did that with the letter in July 2020. You've done this, you're doing it now. I think more, I just want to raise the point that we all must do it more. And if people are wondering what masks, well, I think that there's a Greek myth, the man of 1,000 masks, which basically says in different circumstances, we have a different mask. So talking to a strange person, I have this particular, talking to a strange person about business, I have this particular mask, talking to someone at a network, it's all different personalities, but there is a true self behind all that. And when you honor it, amazing things happen. I wonder, did you ever sort of, and I do this even now, where you try and be totally vulnerable and just be yourself in a particular situation and look back and see how it went versus how it would have gone if I'd had a mask on? Yeah,
okay. So I think I'm living it now. So the most terrifying, I know I keep using that word because I actually do feel somewhat, to be vulnerable is to be scared, because to be vulnerable is you do things without knowing. There's no certainty behind it. You just have to trust that to be completely open and vulnerable, that you will be safe and protected. But the most vulnerable I've ever been, truthfully, is in writing this book. And that's scary because, it comes out next week. It comes out in a week, and, people will like it. They'll love it. Some people won't. And and it's, and that's an interesting feeling to sit in, because it's like, I will be judged, and that's fine, but it's also my life. But I have to own that, because I believe there was no point doing what I did if I couldn't bear it all. If I couldn't, there was one chapter actually that got removed from the book, chapter 8. It was the most vulnerable chapter of all. It talked about, the falling apart of my marriage, infidelity, my journey with myself and my lack of love for myself, and how hard it's been in my life for me to have difficult conversations with people. And so therefore I would, take the easy way out. And that's essentially how I ended up with my marriage falling apart. I think it was actually even too much for Wiley. It was even too much for them.
Wiley being the publisher.
Yeah. So, but I look back now and I'm like, you know what? That's okay, because I have other platforms like this where I can talk about the importance of owning your story.
Could you not put chapter 8 in a sealed section at oliviacarr.com.au?
Absolutely. I mean, everyone that knows me is like, give me chapter 8. We want chapter 8.
I reckon this is a marketing ploy. I reckon this is all bullshit. Oh, they ripped out chapter 8. We couldn't publish it.
They'll probably kill me for mentioning it. No, I
You're
think
a very
they
good
will.
marketer, Olivia.
No, I genuinely think if Lucy's listening,
gosh.
Lucy Roman will have a field day of the fact that I'm even mentioning this. But I mean, I laugh about it, but I remember like that. I I started writing the book on the 21st of November last year, and I had to get a therapist from the 28th, a week in, because my life...
Trigger.
Yeah. It just, everything came pouring out. All the mistakes I'd made, all the unhealed wounds, as they say. I know it sounds very like woo-woo, but it's
think?
like...
I hesitate to do this, but it's a business podcast and people are tuning in for the business insights and the stories.
Yeah.
Just bringing it back to that and absolutely not discounting or cheapening anything you're saying, but to the business owners listening, which is 100% of the people listening, what are we saying to them? Pick yourself up, toughen up. No, that's we don't want to hear that.
No, we don't. Yeah, I think ultimately why I talk a lot about this, and yes, you know, I'm a business person, but majority of my conversations, like when I mentor women, it's never about business. When I go into my therapy sessions, it's never about business. It might be that, you know, like everyone listening, we're all having a bloody challenging time right now because none of us know what's going on, and that's just where we're at. Yeah. But ultimately, it's deeper than that. It's like how much risk are you prepared to take? How much risk are you not prepared to take? Why are you not prepared to take risk? And if we start thinking through why we're feeling as rattled as we are, or why we're feeling as kind of uncertain as we are, like 100% of the time it comes back to ourselves and whatever it is that we're struggling with. And like, is it self-belief? Is it that, you know, you've had trauma in your past and this is bringing up, you know, for me, gosh, there's a whole chapter in my book. I nearly went to prison for the debt that I was in my 20s. Like I faced up to the Melbourne Magistrates Court at one point because my life caught up with me. So going through moments now where the economy's like, you know, that brings up all those memories of me going through financial hardship. That brings it up. So then as a business owner, it's like, oh God, is the world ending? But then I have to come back and be like, no, you know what? The only thing I can control today, and the only thing your listeners can control, you and I, is our own mindset. It's like, what do I need to do to keep my business going? You know, in March 2020, when that happened, yes, it was serious. Yes, I had no money behind me. Yes, but what can I do? And I have to dig deep, and I have to think bigger than I've thought before, and I have to pull myself through the quicksand, like sink or swim. It's like, it's so annoying when people say this stuff, but it's so true.
I think the big learning here is, and it's a cliche, but put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you worry about others. And I think as business owners, we don't do that enough because we think, oh, you know, I'll be seen as being, you know, I'll look after the boss first and all that kind of stuff. It's not about that.
Yeah.
If the owner's in good shape, then he or she can go and look after the rest, can make clear decisions, can think clearly, can look after their staff. So it makes perfect sense. So, okay, thank you for sharing that, by the way, Olivia, because, I mean, you're going to be sharing it a lot. Mm-hmm. You know, your book's coming out and you're speaking at the retail conference up in Brizzy next week and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, get used to it, I think, my friend.
Yeah.
And good on you. Because the more stories we hear about this, I think the better, the more conversations and the more people who are nervous more business owners that are hesitating to open up about themselves will. Mm. We get to a point 8 years ago and you start a business called Shhh Silk. Why? What problem were you solving?
Mm. I mean, the problem I was solving, like the most simplest, is I'd lost my silk pillowcase on a recent trip to America. Damn. So that, like, if we just start, like, and I'd slept on silk since my 20s, just because any females listening will know that your hairdresser's probably told you before to sleep on one. If you get your hair done, you want to kind of get the longest you can out of your $70 blow dry, or your skin. So for me, I came back from America, and the very first thing was I'd lost my silk pillowcase. The housekeepers had taken it away, and I came back and I was like, oh, I have to spend $100 replacing this thing. It's very annoying because they're expensive, always have been. And I was like, I just want a zip. Like, I actually just want a zip because it falls off my pillow and that's irritating. And I was actually going to be launching a technology product. I'd been to Las Vegas, and anyway, I knew I was launching something. And then I was like, you know, I was thinking about it and I was like, why is there no zip? And also they're very daggy, like they're very for not my age group. And I just want it to look good on the bed. And literally I was sitting there at my desk and I'm Googling, you know, globally, silk pillowcase with zipper, and it didn't exist. And I had the classic light bulb moment and I was like, oh my God, this is a thing. And I am a fan of the Kardashians. It's no secret. And I knew that they also slept on silk, and they talk about it all the time in their show, and they're seen carrying it around. And theirs looked really average. It was like homemade. It was just not good at all. So I was like, I wonder if I could make a silk pillowcase that I love, could I then also make one that the Kardashians would actually want to sleep on? And it was at that point that everyone in my life was like, you've actually lost the plot now. Like, you've just left a GM role at Pacific Brands, earning a bloody good income, finally, after getting your life together. You leave to launch a silk pillowcase business so niche, so bizarre, so left field. And I was like, no, you know what? I think I can do this. And 3 days later, I went to China to learn everything about silk. And I gave myself 6 months. I was like, you know what? I have enough money in the bank, 6 months. If in 6 months I can't get the Kardashians to sleep on the silk, then I'll just go back and get a job. Here we are 8 years later.
And did you think the Kardashians sleeping on the silk was going to be the hockey stick inflection you needed to make then $1 million in sales? Was that the goal?
Yeah. So this is again back in 2015, where like there was no paid sponsorship with celebrities back then. You know, influencers they were around, but they were probably called bloggers back then. So it was like one of those, again, beautiful timing moments where I was like, also, wouldn't it just be cool to just, like, I say this to people that I mentor. If you have an idea, think the biggest you can, like go further than you believe you can achieve, because even if you fall short of that, it'll be amazing. And I thought to myself, who are the most influential women that, you know, 25-year-old women are watching and looking at? That's who I need. And it was them. And I was like, but literally everyone was like, okay, Olivia, 1, you've got no marketing budget. 2, how on earth do you think? And I was like, I don't need to be bogged down in the detail.
Who are you to be doing this, Olivia Carr?
Yes. I don't need to be bogged down in the detail. I just have to believe. And sure enough, I hand delivered them. And there's a whole massive story about that.
You hand delivered them to the Kardashians?
I did, to Kim Kardashian and Kanye West.
So you're not getting away with that one. Let me just get the spade out, because it's a very deep rabbit hole, Olivia.
We're still supposed to be talking about me and what happened when I was 19, but we'll just fast forward.
No. I think we've got we don't need to go into the nitty gritty of that. I understand that you've had you did it tough and you've come out the other side, and that's why you are sharing this story. That's awesome. On my other podcast, Psychology Today, we can talk about that.
Amazing.
That's not true. I don't have another podcast yet.
Until now. Yeah.
Tell me, so you have this idea, a zipper on a silk pillowcase. You're getting paid a good amount of money at Pacific Brands, but you go and start this e-com business with 6 months runway in front of you to be able to do it. You think, well, what's going to really get me on the map if the Kardashians use and post about my silk pillowcase? That's it. You did it. So
I love the look on your face.
You take over here. You fly over to LA and hope to get a meet. What did you do?
I mean, I love that I've got like a marketing guru and such a legend in the marketing space, like so perplexed by this, because in the world of marketing, it makes no sense. Like every marketer listening to this, or probably every business person will be like,
marketing makes no sense.
Yeah, it's like, but how did you do that? And how would your mind even think, firstly, that you could do that? But literally, that's how my brain works. I was like, no, that's, you know, other people would see that as an impossible task. To me, it just made perfect sense. I was like, well, no. So to your question, I literally jump on the Qantas website. I book a ticket to LA. In my mind, I don't think too far ahead because I don't want to come across any restricted thinking. So I never let my brain go to, well, what if it can't? Like if you go too many steps ahead with big ideas like this, you'll chicken out. You'll talk, because logic will sink in and you'll start to be like, that will never work. So I never think too far ahead. So I buy the ticket. I think it was like the 16th of January, 2016, like 3 months after launching. I land in LA. I've got a suit on. I hire a car. Now, I had their address because it's quite easy. The more famous you are, it's quite easy to find addresses on the internet. So, yes, I did find the address. And it was actually supposed to be Kris Jenner, who's the mum, her work residence. So I think I'm turning up to a work residence. So I get in this hire car. I pull up to the address. At this point, I start to think, oh, God. I pull up and it looks like, imagine you're entering a prison. Now, I didn't go to prison, luckily, but that's what it feels like. There's a big boom gate. There's like a brick building with like security everywhere, cameras everywhere, because it's a private residential estate. Now, I've lived a very humble life. I didn't even know that private estates were a thing. So again, this is where if you do your research, you're probably never going to.
Did you know stalking was a thing?
Well, this is where it like takes a bit of a dark turn, because there's actually a law in Los Angeles where they can use deadly force to protect. Yep. Didn't know that either. Again, don't do your research. So I turn off and I get to this brick building. I've got a hire car with a sticker on the thing, and I'm thinking, oh God. And I'm fresh off the plane. And I'm thinking, well, I just have to.
Fresh off everything by the sounds of it.
I just have to like continue, like poker face. So I pull up to the little gate, and, you know, the guy says, I wind the window down, and he says, oh, you know, who are you here to see? And I said, I'm here to see Kris Jenner Communications. And I keep it very serious. That's her business name. He says, okay, have you got ID? And I hand my Australian ID over. I mean, this guy, there were some red flags in this that he maybe should have been better trained on. And he looks at my ID and he said, oh, do you know where you're going? And I said, yes, I do. And he opens the boom gate. And I'm like, at this point, to answer your question, I'm like, okay, I think I'm out of my depth now. Like, all I could think in that moment was, navigator, please don't say, you know, because this is supposed to be, I'm here to see her. I get in that estate, and at that point, my heart is like, I'm now super nervous. Again, not knowing I could have been shot. None of that. Just knowing that I'm now in a place that I'm perhaps not meant to be.
Were you doing a combat roll down the driveway?
Oh, I was still driving.
Gear? Are you still driving at this point?
Like, these estates are massive. Like, Justin Bieber lives in one of the same estates. It's just huge. And the amount of security, anyway. So I'm driving, I pull up, I get to the house, and then I realise that actually she works from their residence. So this is again before the show had really blown up. She was obviously working from the residence. The first thing I see is a matching pimped out matte black and matte grey Rolls Royce parked on the grass out the front. And I'm like, what the hell? Later, I Googled those cars, and it was Kim and Kanye. 6 months later, when you watch the show, because it's always filmed, I realised they were living there because they were renovating their home. But when I pull up to the house that day, there was a big do not cross because she happened to be renovating her driveway. So I'm like, all the signs are kind of telling me, kid, get out of here.
Turn around.
Get out of here. So I'm idling out the front. The cameras are huge at this house. And I'm like, again, one of these moments in life, you have a choice. What do I do? Do I turn around or do I get out of the car? I'm a big believer in the universe, and sometimes good things happen. A UPS truck turns up at that exact moment with a delivery for the exact house.
You kill the driver, put on his uniform, deliver his stuff.
I mean, that actually would have been probably a better option. I mean, this all happened really fast. Like, it's a big story, but it happened very, very fast because obviously I didn't have time to hang around. I watch him. He climbs over the rope. He goes and he puts his box down. He presses the doorbell. I literally chase after him. I had my box of goods. I actually had a 4-page letter as well, which is kind of important to the story. I had a 4-page letter about what I was doing, why I was there, my purpose, blah, blah, blah. And I put it on top of the box. Now, the only question that I get asked a lot is, why did I not wait for them to answer the door? I think that's probably the important thing that my gut said, get out of here, because I could hear them. I could hear noises inside, but I was like, no, you need to get out. It felt at that point like I shouldn't be there. So I left. I actually then went to the next estate to try and do it to Courtney, to the sister, but they actually were, they sent me running. They rang the house and they said they're not expecting. They sent me on my way. As it turns out, that was in the January. By April, I actually got an email from Kim's assistant. And I remember the day thinking, oh, spam. And my response back was, okay, cool. Like, I was quite dismissive. I later found out it actually was her assistant, because we went for dinner together, and I actually got to go to Kim's house Halloween, October 2017, signed an NDA. But anyway, there's a lot to this story. But the nice story is she actually ended up loving the product, asking for the product. Back in the day when they had their apps and all of their websites, she wanted to do giveaways. This is, again, the unfortunate thing to this is brands can't replicate this now because everything is paid, everything's commercial. But back then she literally was like, hey, I love your product. I want to give it away to all of my followers. I would get the hero banners on her website. It blew up our brand. It went from me working at home to 9 staff in our office in a short period of time. Those were the good old days. Those were the good old days.
What a great story, Olivia.
Yeah. So it's cool. It is a cool story.
So just to finish, just to put a bow on that, you said you had, I don't know the Kardashians, but you said you had dinner with Kim in 2017?
So I had dinner with her assistant when we launched our first collection at the Beverly Hills Hotel, and they invited me to the house. So I got to go in the house. after signing my life away to the massive security guard who looks like Dwayne Johnson out the front. I got to see her Halloween costume before it was released to the world because it was drying. And I'm like,
dying to do that.
Yeah, anyone that loves its family will be like, that's a cool story.
That's a good get, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
I had a past guest, and I wish I could remember her name, but it is absolutely escaped me. An Adelaide woman who came up with a pajama brand called Something and Something, and it took off when she went to the Beverly Wiltshire Hotel, which has got the famous palm or some kind of wallpaper print that it's known for.
I know who you mean, and they had their cotton PJs there before we came in with our silk ones.
That's right. Oh, gee, I'm sorry about that. Sorry to mention the war, but she also got the Kardashians involved because the Kardashians loved that print. They loved Beverly Hills Wiltshire and blah, blah, blah. And that, again, back in the day. It's sad. I think you and I both share the sadness of these stories where, you know, you go, oh, that was back in the day. You can't do that now. And I sort of want to say something to everyone listening. It's like people going, oh, you know, you were lucky. You started podcasting 14 years ago. You were the first. But, like, I don't really buy that. Because it becomes a harder creative challenge. What I also find is that, and this has come up a few times in my life recently, where if you just ask, you will more than likely get. I had Steve Sims on the show about 3 weeks ago. He used to be a concierge to the stars, Elon Musk, Elton John, George Clooney. He's the guy who could get them anything. And he tells the story of organising a 4-course silver service dinner at the feet of Michelangelo's David in the Uffizi Museum or the Accademia, whatever it's called in Florence, with Andrea Bocelli singing between courses. And when I asked how he did that, sure, there was some machinations involved and some work, but he said, number one, I rang the museum where David was and asked. And they said, well, no one's ever asked that before. And I don't see why not.
Yeah. I mean, it's so true. Like, whilst the one thing that you said before is I don't condone stalking, I don't condone trespassing. I genuinely didn't know that there were these locked up estates.
Of course.
So I wouldn't suggest that you replicate that. However, I genuinely say to people, even today, I think what it's about is making impact. And whether you're a celebrity or you're not a celebrity, they're humans. And if you can create a very special, unique, momentarily, like, amazing experience that person gets to feel something, you can 100% get cut through with your brand, because it's about giving them something. Like, these people get access to whatever they want in the world, but just like you and I, they still want that moment where they just get to experience joy.
100%.
And that's what you can replicate. That's 100% what you can replicate.
I think the interesting way of looking at this, and I'm sort of out of my wheelhouse here, because I'm not really that interested in social media. It gives me the shits. But you look at these people, you're talking about people like the Kardashians. They're the number one influencers in the world. They're actually looking for content, right? They're looking for content just as much as you or I or the next business owner. And content for them is probably harder to come by. So if you can create, as you say, a moment for them, a meaningful moment, then I'd probably argue even today, whilst, everything's pay to play, maybe you can slip under the curtain and get a free run. You've also, Olivia, moving on, but still in the world of influencers, Miley Cyrus, Serena Williams, Victoria Beckham, Selena Gomez. These people have all been, you're a wacko. Is this more stalking or
no?
We can't go through all these. And I know some of them you've just sent them product and crossed your fingers and hopefully they'll post something, which has happened. Was there another story where you've actually actively gone after one of them? I mean,
I go after most of them, to be fair. And this is the cool thing, I'm actually about to do a very similar thing with the book. I have a very crazy PR kind of plan to kind of get myself in some crazy places in the world over the next year. So you'll have to watch this space.
Oh, but no, we won't. You're going to tell us right now. What's that? Tell us just a little bit what underpins it.
Okay, I guess it's my love for out-of-the-box thinking. It comes back to what you said before. Like, there's so much comparison online, but you know what's lost online is being different, being yourself, being crazy, being weird, being impressionable. I think it's so much braver to actually do what everyone else is not doing. I think people should stop doing what everyone's doing and do the opposite. And so that's kind of like what I did, like with the Kardashians. I don't know another brand that jumped on a plane and hand delivered it. Like that's not genius thinking. It's just doing what people aren't doing. And so I guess to answer your question, I mean, with the book, I'm just doing what other people are not doing. And it comes back to yours, just turn up and ask. Like I will literally be turning up on doorsteps of some of the most influential people in the world.
With your book.
Whether it's TV studios in the US, whether it's some of the world's biggest podcasters. And just like when I got into the Beverly Hills Hotel, I checked in as a guest and I just didn't leave until like you just have to do things that like, is that stalkerish? I don't know. Maybe it is. Let's not label me as that though.
Hey, own it.
Own it.
I didn't expect. I'm thoroughly enjoying this chat. I didn't expect it to go here. I knew there'd been a tumultuous upbringing and, you know, getting Shhh Silk to market and all that kind of stuff was hard. I love this conversation about out-of-the-box thinking. One of the things, you're about my 650-something interview, the ones that I particularly enjoy are the wacko ones, and I say that with love and respect. You know, I can have lots of conversations about, I've got an interview this afternoon with Australia's leading SEO expert and Harry Sanders. It'll be a very interesting, rational discussion, and Harry's good at telling stories around it, but it's SEO, and I've done interviews about how to optimize your networking prowess and all this, but I haven't done and I haven't found enough business owners that do this kind of stuff. The first one I think I did was years ago, Tom Dixon of Willett Blend fame, where he owned Blendtech, these famous commercial blenders that you find in McDonald's and Boost Juice, and the way he would prove how good they were was he'd blend an iPhone or a hockey puck or an iPad or a PlayStation to prove it. Wacko, extreme product demonstration. I've interviewed business owners that have broke Guinness World Records, but I think you're right. I mean, it's a really interesting marketing strategy. It's relatively inexpensive. It's fun. It's impactful if you get it right. Leads to some good stories, and I say this seriously. It leads to a speaking career. Because, there's no, and that can be pretty lucrative. You're about to do, I think you're about to do that anyway.
Yes, I am. Yeah. I mean, I'll give your listeners another great example because one thing you can hear it lights me up. I am a huge advocate for helping other founders, businesses to kind of adapt or adopt this mindset of just doing the crazy. So, and they are kind of inexpensive. And I would always say, no matter how big your brand is, think small, because it's when you don't have access to resourcing for marketing that you're forced, like I said, my back's up against the wall. How can I create the same outcome that someone like a Nike or Apple can with no marketing budget? So anyone listening that, Mecca Brands, Mecca Maxima, amazing, beauty
I want
Central.
to interview the lady who founded it.
Yeah, Joe. Yeah. So I wanted to also get in front of Joe. And as a brand, you don't send emails these days. You don't hound them. You don't do all that. It's just, you're not going to get cut through. So I was very patient and I was like, I want to get my product in Mecca. I need to get in front of Joe. I need to make an impact. What is the first impression I can make? So this was a couple of years ago and I knew they were about to open their 100th store. And this is kind of a fundamental part of the strategy that I use is it's never about you as the brand. It's never about me. It's not about my silk pillowcase. It's about Joe. It's about Mecca. It's about her milestone. Same with the Kardashians. When I do the stuff with them, it's actually never about our product, to be honest. And that's really important to the story. So I waited for their 100th store to open and I went down to Lombard's, the paper people, and I got 100 helium balloons done in the closest color to her brand and got printed on every single balloon the individual names of the 100 stores, filled up 3 cars, turned up to their head office in Melbourne, walked into reception, unannounced, no meeting. No one's turning you away when you've got 100 helium balloons, let me tell you that much. I walk in and I say, these are for Joe. Everyone in that head office in Melbourne is like, what is going on? They know it's the 100th store. Okay, this is kind of cool, blah, blah, blah. Leave a little note and literally just say like, what an amazing milestone. That's it. No product, no nothing. What's the first thing you think Joe does when she receives these? She sends me an email. She's blown away, like blown away. And that was my entry into Mecca. And then that's followed by, I'd love to put you in contact with our buyers. Now, sure, you and I can cut through the BS. Why would I do that? Because obviously I want to meet with the buyers. She knows that. But it's the fact that I don't just do what everyone else does, which is send a fancy PR box, please stock our products, because what's in it for them? Like in this scenario, they're doing me a favor. So I need to make an impact. And that's fundamentally how your brand can be recognized. Yeah. And it's just bloody fun. Like, it's just so much fun.
Totally. The clean freak in me would have said, oh, thanks. Now what do I do with 100 balloons?
Well, I mean, I guess, I'm sure they were having parties. I'm sure there was stuff happening in the office. Like,
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
What a great story. And it is fun, bring back fun in marketing, bring back fun in business. It's all too bloody serious. There's too many acronyms.
Yeah.
SEO, PPC, PPM. It's just a nonsense. Just have fun. Send people balloons.
Yeah. I mean, we have never, as a brand in 8 years, we've never paid an influencer in the history of the brand. We just haven't. We don't have a traditional marketing budget. Yes, sure, we pay for Google and Facebook and all the rest of it, but we don't do paid activations. We create, and it's not because we don't want to pay, but I just think you don't get cut through anymore. Like, you can't just do what everyone else is doing. You're all like, with my book, I'm getting a plane to fly over the Spring Racing Carnival with Self-Made, the book, out now. Why? Why not? Like, why not?
Wow.
Like, why not?
What's that cost?
What do you think it would cost? This was fascinating.
Great question. I obviously asked because it sounds expensive. And I'm going to say, so a little Cessna towing a little banner, I don't know, I'm going to say $2,000.
Yeah, about 2.5.
There you go.
And to be honest, I thought it was going to be a lot more than that, which is why I think people don't even look into these ideas, because they don't even allow their mind to like who thinks of that? And I'll tell you how I got the idea, because some crazy person in America recently on, 6 months ago, they did Kris Jenner for president. And I was like, that's bloody brilliant. It went viral. And I'm like, well, there's an idea. I'll do Self-Made the book out now. Now, will that sell books? It's not the point. It's just a cool thing to do.
I think we've got to understand, like Daniel Flynn from Thank You tells the story of flying a chopper outside the boardroom of Coles and Woolworths.
Yeah, I remember that.
Towing a banner saying, please stock thank you, whatever it may be, while they're meeting. So, yeah, and I think those ideas too, you're right. If you're looking for a direct line between aeroplane banner and sales of books, ain't going to happen. But it's a very squiggly line of lots of social media activity. There's the money shot photo that you're going to use in keynotes going forward. There's probably some PR that you're going to get in local newspapers or TV. You got to. That's $2,500 very well spent.
Yeah.
What's the process look like inside the business, Olivia, for this stuff to happen? Is it just in your head and your staff go, here comes the wacko again, wonder what you've got today? Do you have an ideas box? Do you have meetings? Is there a process?
Yeah, okay. So I would say we are a very out-of-the-box business. Anyone that works here, if you were in the office today, process is important, but it can also hinder fun. To be fair, I think it can hinder fun. So the process would normally be that on any given day, at any given moment, something will come out of my mouth and we will literally act on it. So it's very agile. It's very, we just had a strategy day recently and literally an idea pops into my head and I was like, right, we're doing that and we're doing it next week. Now, some of these ideas are far-fetched and they don't always work. Like I had this idea once that we should launch Byron Bay themed wedding gowns. It was a disaster, right? It was a disaster, but we gave it a go. Whereas other ones we've done, like what we're doing is our social impact day, where it's kind of very Ghostbusters vibe. We're calling ourselves the Self-Made Squad. We are going, I've actually already pitched this to some TV networks. This is what I mean. We have an idea and I'm pitching it to TV networks that night. And it's called the Self-Made Squad, where our whole team turns up to struggling small business owners. And we spend an entire day with the whole team. We support them through what it is that they're going through. We try and, very Gordon Ramsay style, let's see if we can help turn your business around. We're all rocking up in matching uniforms. We've got a bus pimped out with the Self-Made Squad, like literally turning up like Ghostbusters, free of charge, to do our new social impact initiative. That idea came because we were sitting down eating donuts, being stupid in the office. And I was like, what's the point of all this? Like, I do ask myself this all the time. And I think this is an important process. Why am I doing this? I mean, I think you asked me, we had a quick chat before our call. You asked me a really important question. Why did I write the book? And you know what? I asked myself the question.
Can I rephrase that? Because it was actually going to be my next question, and I was a little bit ruder in my questioning to you. And I tested you in our pre-interview to see whether I could ask it. So let me ask it and feel really bad about myself, and then you say, oh, no, that's a good question, Timbo. So what I did ask Olivia was, okay, you've got a business, an e-com business. It's turning over $2 million annually now after 8 years. It's about to have its 8th birthday, and you've got 7 staff, right? That's a good little business. Well done to you. I'm in awe. I think it's ace. But there's a huge amount of upside to that business, I'm guessing. It should be a $10, $20, $30 million business ready for a buyout or whatever it may be, I think. Mm-hmm. But hey, we're not all here to build empires. I get that. But who are you, Olivia Carr, to write a book telling the rest of us what to do and adding a membership site on top of that? Now, I ask that slightly facetiously, but slightly seriously.
And I loved it. Can I just say that I wrote a note in my diary after our chat that day. One thing I value is bravery. And I think you asking the obvious, like I had so much respect for you because I like straight shooters. So I was like, you know what? Why not roll the whole, start with the truth. And if I answer with the end in mind, which is where I was going before, it's who am I to write a book? Well, firstly, who am I not to write a book? I think anyone has a book in them, and anyone who has written a book will know that it is actually one of the hardest things that you will ever do in life, especially like me. I'm going to call it out. 70% of authors don't actually write their own book. They use ghostwriters. Mm-hmm. That's the current average. I wrote every single word of that book. So firstly, it's, I guess, to answer your question, it's not who am I, it's why did I? It's why did I decide to write the book? And I decided to write the book because I believe everything I do in life is about impact. Whether I impact that one woman who today wants to get out of a marriage that is controlling, but she has no finances behind her and doesn't know how to start. Or it could be that business owner that's on the cusp of just making it or losing it all. That's why. I think the most important part of why I did the book, though, was because I believe that my journey in life, like the selfish part of me, it's not even selfish, the honest part of Olivia is that, yes, this silk business, I could get into so many new hotels around the world, which is what we're currently working on, and I could sell it and I could easily build it to 10 mil. It's essentially not what lights me up. It's the impact that I can make. Mm-hmm. It's the case studies that I can show to other people where, 3 times in this business journey, I've nearly lost it all. 3 times.
Wow.
And it's like, that's kind of cool. Like, who's sharing that story? In 8 years, I've nearly lost it all. Now, we've lost a property during this because, there's that whole thing, you got to fund it. And it's like, the truth behind what it takes to actually, also, why would you hang on to a business when it's sucking the life out of you? There's something highly addictive about that in me that I'm like, you know what? Here we go again. What can I learn about myself and then share with others?
It's like you almost put yourself in harm's way.
You're the second person in the last couple of weeks to raise that with me. The first was my therapist. So I think, you know what? I learn the most about myself when I am in really sticky, tough situations, but that's when I experience the most growth. And parallel to writing this book was one of the moments where I could have lost this business because I stepped out of it for 8 months. And then I had 3 months at the end of it to bounce and turn it all around before the book came out. And that was exhilarating. And we won't go into it. Like it was something. It was.
Well, you kind of have to go into it, Olivia. You can't.
It was something.
If you're listening to this, I'm actually watching Olivia, and the smile on her face is one of slight amusement, fear, absolute. Without going into the great detail of it, what was so exhilarating? I mean,
I think anyone who runs their own business, you do have to have a little bit of crazy in you. Mm-hmm. Like any founder, even 100%. You doing this for 14, anyone who commits to doing something that puts you on the edge of, will I lose it all? And still be prepared to get up every day, knowing that every single day that is a potential for any business. Like
yes.
The sad thing is, you look, a couple of businesses. There's businesses dropping all the time. There's an element of that where I'm like, I say it's crazy, but it's also this business has been my biggest. I didn't go to university. I didn't finish high school. It's been my biggest playground to learn, to learn about myself, to see, you know what, how deep can I go to the depths of nearly losing it all, and how quickly can I rise back up? When I do fall down, how do I get back up? Why do I get back up? Why do I leave my business when I know I kind of knew what was going to happen? Anyone who steps out of a small business for 8 months, and not put someone in your place when you're in charge of all the sales and marketing. But I took a risk, and the biggest answer to that is I backed myself. I have this saying, no one's coming to save you. No one is coming to save me. But I backed myself knowing that there's a bigger journey ahead in taking that risk, but at the same time bouncing back into the business and then having to quickly turn it around again was bloody tough.
How are you going to do that? Because I sort of can see your future for you, because I've met people like you before, and Daniel Flynn's one of them, and there's many others. I emceed a conference actually only last weekend at which Daniel spoke at. I've shared many stages with Daniel and heard his story time and time again. Now, Daniel runs a big business in Thank You. They've got, I think, 40 or 50 SKUs in supermarkets around Australia, New Zealand, the world. He's a busy man. It's a social enterprise. He speaks at, I don't know, he would speak at 30, 40 conferences a year, possibly earns more from conference speaking than he does from a wage at Thank You. He does it, though, because he knows that in every room there's going to be one person that can push the Thank You business forward through maybe a supply channel, maybe through some venture capital, maybe whatever it may be. But there's one person in that room. His balance is the juggle is difficult because he's got a big business to run, and he has got a personal brand and speaking business on the side. I feel like you're heading down that track. Will it be at the expense of your business?
I hope not. So I've just announced on LinkedIn a couple of weeks ago, I've just partnered with my old partner at the Beverly Hills Hotel, who I've been doing the collaborations with. We've now done a joint venture where she's just launched the hotel club. So she's come on board. We're going to global domination with hotels.
Geez, that's a good partnership.
It is a good partnership. The power of relationships, we haven't got time to talk about that today, but that's fundamental to everything. So I do believe where I'm steering the business, I've taken another bold risk. I don't know if you've seen this on our website. About a month ago, I turned everything to made to order.
Yeah.
100% made to order, which anyone in the D2C space, it's how does that even work? We have to take risks. I don't have time anymore to build a business that was operating the way it was. So I was like, you know what? If I do made to order, I need to have a team in here twice a month that get the orders out. The rest of the time, all of us can build what we're working on now. So I'm simplifying the business. It's a better sustainable model. I'm taking risks that I wouldn't have taken a year ago when this book wasn't even happening. I am literally putting myself on planes to build out, I guess, where I believe I'm going with this. I mean, I'll say it because I think you should say crazy things, and you should have, if you're not scared to say where you think you're going, then it's not big enough. I kind of see myself becoming the Brené Brown of Australia.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I see it. I see the vision. I think I have lived the life I've lived because of the impact I truly believe I can make on others. Will it work? Probably, because I believe it will, and just the more people who probably tell me it won't.
Bring it on.
It's just going to fuel me. I mean, when I fell pregnant at 19, I remember my family telling me my life was over. I missed out. I got the acceptance letter for NIDA where Mel Gibson and everyone, that was the same week I was pregnant. And everyone told me that my life was over. And I was like, you know what? I will show you that my life is just beginning. I don't know. That's why I do what I do. I don't want to play safe.
Clearly.
Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Anyone listening, we're all uncomfortable right now, whether you're going through struggling to pay your mortgage right now because interest rates are crazy, food prices are going nuts. Some of us are experiencing terrible feelings about all the stuff going on in the world. Don't avoid that feeling. I think the problem with a lot of founders or a lot of people right now is that we all want to avoid feeling uncomfortable. I will tell you that in every moment that I have sat in that and publicly shared on my Instagram when I am feeling completely broken and I cry and I try and share with everyone what it feels like to truly sit in it for months on end. I can't see the light at the time, but I have faith that the longer I sit in it, something amazing is going to come. And it's very cliche, the rainbow after the storm. This is the rainbow. Like the next phase of my life, that's the rainbow. But I can only experience it because I didn't run away from it.
It's very, very true.
Yeah.
Well said, Brene.
Thank you.
I love it.
Yeah.
I hope that dream comes true. There's room for it. There's a gap in the market. Like who's owning that space?
No one.
For those who don't know who Brene Brown is, I mean, who is she? She's a deep thinker. I wouldn't say philosopher, but she's a
vulnerability queen. Yeah.
Vulnerability queen, personal development space, sort of a Tony Robbins, but probably a little bit more, less cheesy than him.
Yeah.
But that's awesome. That is awesome. I don't want to finish the interview on this question, but I have to ask it. It's just such a boring question. But it's troubled me since I first got your pitch to come on this podcast.
I love it.
I
love your questions. Okay.
Well, this is boring. Why? But
it's a good answer. It's a great answer.
I'm interested in business names and brand names. Why Shhh Silk? Personally, it's one of the toughest names I've ever come across.
Yeah, which is also part of the magic. That was just a byproduct.
You can say that.
Yeah. So when I launched the brand, there's a couple of things here. It was always online. I never planned to be in retail. That's an evolution that happened. So I never thought anyone would have to say it. I truly thought, I'll just read it. It's quite easy to read. But the reason why I went with that is fundamental to our business, which for those that don't know, our mantra internally is doing good is in our DNA. It's why I exist. It's just who I am. It's going to come through in everything I do. When we first launched the brand, there's a whole story around homelessness and my personal story and struggles in life. We partnered with a charity where we used to fund orphans with all their school supplies in Tigray for a year. And we used to put a little card in saying, shh, we've got a secret to share with you. And then we would tell them about all the amazing charity stuff we're doing. And we kept that a secret for 4 years until a branding agency one day said, you probably want to tell people about the amazing stuff you're doing. Who would have thought? And then the other play on it was that shh, sleep, quiet. So it kind of had a few different meanings. I did have many consultants in the first couple of years, especially when things were happening with the Kardashians, say you need to change the name. And I was like, no, it's so bad that it's so good. Like it's so bad. But that's why.
Thank you for agreeing. Good on you. Yeah. Well, Olivia, what a great chat. Thank you so much for being vulnerable, for taking off the mask. You can put it back on when I stop recording.
No, it's gone. It's mostly gone. I would also like to say I just genuinely want to thank you for your kindness. As I said to you before we even started recording today, I was nervous. I've been out of I haven't done any media since 2019. I suffered severe social anxiety during COVID. It was debilitating. And I took myself off the speaking market, and this is my first interview back in the arena, as they say, and you've been kind. And I'm truly grateful for that. Thank you.
Well, it's my absolute pleasure. You're a fantastic guest with some great stories to tell. And I have a feeling this won't be the last time we chat. Miss Carr, we'll get you back on next time to see how that flying around the world dropping books off goes. Olivia Carr, carr.com.au is where you can find out all about Olivia, or you can go to Shhh Silk, shhsilk.com.au.
3 H's, but that's good.
3 H's, there you go. Yeah. Hey, great name. Well done to you. And
hard to say and spell.
If someone could send me a sleep mask, that'd be great.
Yeah, we will.
Olivia, awesome. And I wish you all the best with the launch of Self-Made, the book.
Thank you so much.
Well, there you go, team. Shhh Silk's Olivia Carr. I loved chatting to Olivia. I hope you enjoyed hearing what she had to say as much as I did. She's got some great ideas there. Seriously, if you're struggling with your marketing, if you're a bit over the same stuff, the Facebook ads, the networking, all of that which is valid, have a crack at some of the things Olivia's trying. Open your mind, put aside any limiting beliefs and get stuck in to creating some fun marketing, make marketing a hobby so that you can't wait to do the next bit of it. That's what Olivia's doing, whether she knows it or not. She's made it a hobby. When something's a hobby, you find the time, the resources, the energy to do it. You put it in your diary regularly. Hey, if you'd like to watch that interview, then feel free to lash out and join my uber expensive membership over at patreon.com/marketing podcast. And if you'd like to join the discussion about the episode, you can also join the Small Business Big Marketing Tribe on Facebook. That's free. Just doesn't pay my mortgage, that's all. Anyway, I'll see you on the inside. Okay, guess what, team? It's time for you to take action on what you've learned, because ideas remain exactly that without action. Take a page out of the Olivia Carr book, Self-Made, any page, and implement. Plus, if you feel like supporting the work I do for small business, please join my Patreon over at patreon.com/marketing podcast. Next week, our resident SEO expert, Harry Sanders, will talk to us about the recent Google update. And guess what it was about? Helpful marketing. Surprise! Not. Hey, if you enjoyed today's episode, please hit the subscribe button on your podcast app. It helps with my rankings and my ego. Plus, you'll find 655 more episodes with successful founders just like Olivia. Big thanks to editor Sam Heathcote for stitching the marketing gold together, to our in-house rock star Lockie Doley for the music bed, and most importantly, a very, very, very heartfelt thank you to you for making the time to tune in. Good on you. May your marketing be the absolute best marketing. Bye for now.